Her name was Mira, and for 18 years she had been called a mistake by both species that made her. On Earth, they called her hybrid trash. On Zelthera, they called her tainted blood. She had her mother's silver eyes, the mark of the Zelari, an ancient alien race, and her father's human jawline, stubborn and sharp. She belonged fully to neither world, and she had learned a long time ago to stop expecting either one to claim her. But this is not a story about rejection. This is a story about the day both worlds finally looked at her and saw a daughter, not a mistake. Myra's mother, Threnna, was a Zelari diplomat who crash-landed on Earth during the Silent War, a conflict fought not with weapons, but with silence. Two civilizations refusing to speak to each other for over a decade. Her father, Daniel Cole, was the engineer who found her ship, half buried in Montana snow, and made the choice that would define his life. He chose not to report her. He hid her. He healed her. And somewhere between fixing her ship and learning her language, he fell in love with her. Mira was born 2 years later, in secret, in silence, in a cabin far from both worlds that would have destroyed her for existing. She grew up hidden. No school, no friends, just her parents, the stars her mother pointed to every night, and a promise. One day, you won't have to hide. That day came sooner than anyone wanted. When Mira was 17, Zelari scout ships detected unusual energy signatures near her family's land. The residual trace of her mother's ship, still buried after all these years. A retrieval team was sent, and when they found not just wreckage, but a living hybrid child, everything changed. The Zelari High Council called it a violation of the Silence Accord. Human military intelligence called it a security breach. Within 72 hours, Myra's quiet life was gone, replaced by interrogation rooms, guarded facilities, and two governments arguing over what to do with a girl who was, technically, illegal on both worlds. She sat in a sterile white room for 6 days. No one asked her name. They just asked her what she was. On the 7th day, her mother was allowed to see her. Threnna walked in wearing chains. The first time Mira had ever seen her mother look small. "I'm sorry," Threnna whispered. "I thought I could protect you from this." Mira just held her hand and said nothing. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been decided by people who had never met her. It was her father who changed everything. Daniel Cole had spent 18 years as a nobody, a quiet engineer in a quiet town. But he still had access to something the council hadn't accounted for. The original scan logs from the night he found Threnna's ship. Records that proved the Zelari hadn't come to invade. Records that proved Threnna had crashed, unarmed, escaping a war she never started. He walked into the joint hearing, human generals on one side, Zelari counselors on the other, both sides treating his daughter like evidence in a trial, and he did something no one expected. He didn't argue policy. He didn't cite law. He simply placed a small, worn photograph on the table. Mira at age 6, sitting between her parents, laughing at something long forgotten. "You've spent 18 years being afraid of each other," he said. "And in that time, you missed the fact that we already solved the problem you're arguing about. We built something neither of you thought was possible, a family. She's not a symbol of your war. She's the proof your war doesn't have to keep going." Silence filled the room. A Zelari elder, one who had lost a son in the Silent War, finally spoke. "Bring the girl in." When Mira entered, she didn't beg. She didn't explain herself. She simply asked one question. "Do you want to keep being afraid of each other? Or do you want to see what happens when you're not?" No treaty was signed that day. No war ended in an instant. Real history doesn't work that way. But something shifted. The Zelari elder, moved by the sight of a girl who carried his people's silver eyes and a human's stubborn courage, requested to speak with her privately. So did the human general, whose granddaughter, he later admitted, was the same age as Mira. Over the following months, Mira became something neither side expected. Not a political symbol, but a bridge. She taught Zelari children human folk songs. She taught human diplomats the 17 different silences of Zelari grief, and what each one meant. Slowly, meetings that used to end in shouting began ending in shared meals. A year later, at the formal signing of the new accord, the treaty that quietly ended the silent war, Mira stood between her mother and father for the first time in public. No hiding, no fear. An old Zelari woman touched her face gently and said, "Silver eyes and human heart. Perhaps that is exactly what both our people needed." She had spent 18 years being told she belonged to no one. It took one photograph, one question, and two stubborn parents who refused to let her disappear, for both worlds to finally realize she had belonged to both of them all along. If this story moved you, subscribe for more HFY Sci-Fi stories every week.